Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Youth Baseball Midwest Report. We are glad you're joining us today on the show. We're taking a few minutes to talk with Mike Morgan, who just completed. We did this for the first time. We're very pleased to do it. Contributed a blog to our Perspective blog page, and we're glad he did that. Mike, thanks, man. Glad you're with us.
Hey, thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate it very much you being, and we've been working with Mike and the Morgan family with their foundation for a couple years now. We were glad to be part of the golf tournament this summer. We're glad we got that off, right? And
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
and you got your events, you got your trivia night coming up, right?
Yeah. It's that time that we're going through is just hard for us to do some of the things we want to do, and like you said, we were blessed to be able to get the golf tournament off without a hitch this last summer, and we're hoping, fingers crossed, we have everything set up for our trivia night, our second annual trivia night on March 13th. We're working with the Pizzold Banquet Center, which we had the trivia night at last year. They've graciously given us like the whole room, so we can spread everybody out, and we're gonna make sure we are social distancing the tables and things like that. Fingers crossed. We've already met the number of tables we had last year, which is awesome. We did that pretty quickly, so we have just a few tables left, and looking to fill that out. I think things can change from here to then, but we're hoping, fingers crossed, like I said, March 13th, we'll have our second annual trivia night to get off. And then, in July 24th and 25th, we've partnered with Game 7 again, one of your guys' partners as well, Dave and Dave's. Those two guys have been great to us. And again, this year we're going to have our second annual baseball tournament out at Grand Slam Park. So we're super excited for that. It was a great tournament last year. We had some worries last year we were going to get it in because of the pandemic and things that were going on last year. We got it in. It was a great tournament. We're looking forward to it again this year. It's later in the season. We're excited. And Dave and Game 7, they were awesome last year. And we even expect the tournament to be even bigger this year. Last year we had just 3 age groups. We're hoping to have 5 this year and have a full weekend of baseball and honoring Jordan and helping our foundation, and super excited for it.
That's awesome, man. We're looking forward to it. We'll be out there again. We always we love being out there for these types of things. Great time to see the community come together, right?
Absolutely. And so, we always appreciate having you guys out there too.
So, as Mike said, we want to let you know Game 7 Baseball, one of our partners. If you're looking for a great tournament this summer, check out game7baseball.com. Get yourself signed up. They got great discounts. They got leagues. They got high school tournaments coming up this year. They got a bunch of stuff going on. If you want to travel, you can get down to Tennessee, around the Nashville area. Jody Witt and her group do a great job down in Tennessee. There's going to be some good tournaments over in Illinois this year. Down in the southwest, Branson, you got Ballparks of America. Check out game7baseball.com. If you're not following them on Facebook, Game7 Baseball. Check those guys out. They do a great job. Dave and Dave, appreciate you guys. Also,
nobody better, Brian. Those guys are. I mean, we've played in tournaments and different things with my son all across the country, and I don't think there's a better company that puts on a tournament for youth baseball than these guys.
They do a great job. Youth Baseball Midwest is made possible through Red Earth Productions, our production company. If you're looking for brand marketing, content creation, check us out. You can go to our website at redearthprod.com. With all that being said, let's get to some baseball.
Yeah, of course. We're getting close, right?
Yeah. I mean, hopefully spring training even, right? February. We'll see.
Yeah, I heard we're on track for that is what I heard yesterday. So
yeah. So, You opened your blog here. You kind of talked about, over the past 30 years, youth baseball, youth sports in general, but we keep to baseball, but we're talking sport. It's changed over the last 30 years.
Oh
You know,
gosh.
give us your thoughts on that, Mike.
Yeah, Brian, it's just crazy. When I first of all, when I say over 30 years ago, it makes me feel really old because that's when I was playing youth sports. But yeah, it's crazy, man. I mean, I remember when I was, my son's 12 right now, and I remember when I was his age. If I played 13 baseball games this summer, like that was like, yeah, I got a good summer in. They didn't have these leagues and tournaments every weekend. We'd play once a week.
Yeah.
We'd play at the city park.
Yeah.
We had a T-shirt as our uniform. We had an old mesh hat that was just a solid color.
The old snapback.
Absolutely. It's just and it just changed. It's so different. And being growing up the way I did, and having to do what we do now with our kids is just. I mean, it's crazy. It's such a different time. And I tell my son how fortunate he is all the time. I mean, like I said, I've told him I didn't have my first button-up jersey until I was a junior in high school. He has 3 baseball uniforms, 3, and I didn't get my number on my bag ever. And he has a $175 rolling baseball bag with his uniform number and his team logo on it.
It is a different dynamic. Of course, I remember the same thing. My first Little League experience, Mike, was I was 9 years old. My family, we lived in Lebanon, Missouri, and it's the same thing. And if a game got rained out, you may not get to play that game.
Heartbreaking.
You're just like,
Heartbreaking.
oh no. I mean, they didn't make those up that much. I mean, they tried, you might have, but the park space and things like that, it may or may not have gotten played. So you just lost that game. And
Oh
I
yeah,
remember,
those were heartbreaking days as a kid when you could see the rain coming and you're just like. And back then, shoot, the fields were nothing like they are now. So if it rained on Monday, and it rained a lot, Thursday game might be pushing it.
right? Exactly. If you didn't get a lot of sun, and wind and things, it's just true. And I'm with you.
Yeah.
I didn't see my first button up jersey till Legion Ball because our high school didn't have the button up jerseys. So, it has changed a lot. And, I think that we take some of this stuff for granted, don't you think?
Oh, 100%. I think, and just going back at this last year, Brian, I think, it made all of us parents and kids really look back and see how fortunate we are because we got it taken away from us for a couple months.
Yeah.
In March and April, we got baseball taken away from us, and it was hard. It was tough. And I think every weekend we get to play is just, it sounds corny, and it's just an honor and a privilege to get out there and play, but it really is. And like I said, our kids got, they got it taken away from them for a few months. It was hard. It was really hard.
Yeah.
And it continued. My daughter was playing volleyball. She got the end of her volleyball season taken away from her because of COVID. So, every time they get to go out there, it's an honor and a privilege to play.
And I think as parents, we need to really respect that and make sure that the kids understand, this is part of what our country is about. It's a
Yep,
privilege. It is a privilege. It isn't just
absolutely.
something you automatically it's just get because you're born here. No, you understand that there's a lot of things that have happened in this country and what we're seeing today, and it is a privilege for these things. I think that's very relevant,
No,
Mike.
absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And I think too. I think parents lost track of that for a while too. I think the parents of these kids kind of lost track of that as well. And I think that's kind of this last year or so has really brought parents back into perspective as well.
You made mention in the blog about the money that's involved in youth sports, and it's I and you kind of put it at $100 million. I heard on an NBC report they were following a family around. It was baseball, and they talked about youth sports being a $9 billion industry. Okay, and
Yep.
now Me as a person, this is my estimation. You might, and if you want to read the blog, you can go to youthbaseballmidwest.com, go to our blog site, Perspective. Mike's blog is there for you. I understand it costs money to do these things because you have fields, training centers, all the stuff that we do, the uniforms and everything. It does cost money. And in our day and age, money, inflation and things, it does probably cost a little bit more than what it used to, you know. But still,
Yeah.
how do we bring those things into perspective for our kids?
Gosh, I don't know, Brian. That's a great question. As a dad and as somebody that is dishing out this money each and every week, it seems like, and the $100 million number that I put on there, you're right. It's probably nowhere near, when you think about it, is nowhere near the amount of money that parents spend on every sport. And like you said, we talk about baseball a lot, but baseball, to be honest with you, is probably one of the cheaper sports out there, which is crazy because it's insane the amount of money that is spent yearly on registration, practice fields, equipment. Equipment is insane.
Yeah.
Everything, instruction, outside of your team instruction. I don't know how it gets under control because you have to adjust with the times, really, to be honest with you. If I treated my kids the way that I had to do it back when I was a kid, they'd be so far behind. They would be so far behind these other kids because, shoot, Kevin played 50 plus games last year in a shortened pandemic year. You know,
Right.
you get a
Right.
lot of experience out of those 50 games. So, some of these kids will be they're far behind. It's interesting when you go watch a tournament weekend that we're at, and you guys are at, and then you go like on a Tuesday night and go find a city field and find a recreational baseball league the same age as your kid. It is astronomical, the difference between what the game looks like between those two.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And there's a place for those things. And like I think you mentioned blog, we're going to come to that. But I want to ask you this before we get there. We're talking about perspective. You were athletic director, assistant athletic director at Lindenwood. So you saw in that time frame a lot of these kids and the differences as that moves into the collegiate level. How much do you think that has impacted college level sports?
Oh, astronomical. I mean, there's no, it's affected it a ton, to be honest with you. I mean, you don't, and I wasn't fortunate enough to play collegiate athletics when I was a kid. So I don't really remember, what it took to become a college athlete back then, but I see what it takes to be a college athlete now. And yeah, you don't get many days off. Like you can't, you have to continually train. You have to continually practice. When you're in high school, you don't have time for much of anything else. Like you have to keep up with the Joneses, really. I mean, and everybody is doing extra work. Everybody is getting extra, instruction outside of their team. It's change, and it's ever changing, and it's still going to continue to change.
So that leads into my next point and part of the blog here when you're talking about year-round sports and single sport athletes as opposed to multi-sport athletes. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's so tough, Brian. I mean, and fortunately for us in the Midwest, baseball is not really a year-round sport because we can't play baseball, right? We're fortunate because we can't get
Right.
out and play baseball. But like soccer has pretty much become almost a 10-month a year sport. If it's turns into futsal or indoor soccer, or then you have 2 seasons, and I'm gonna tell you right now, basketball's getting very close to a 12-month season. They start playing summer basketball now, and then they
Yeah.
turn into the spring and then a fall. And I will tell you from experience that I know that college coaches look at, you know, what else did you do as a kid? Were
Mm,
you as a football player, I know football coaches look at, did you run track? Did you play basketball when you were a kid? Because that stuff can move into the football field. Track, obviously running track or playing basketball. One sport athletes are are not what college coaches are looking for, to be honest with you. I think playing multiple sports helps you in your main sport as well. I mean, 100% can help you in your main sport. And for somebody to pigeonhole their kid from ages 8 to 13 as a one sport athlete, to me, is you're doing a disservice to your kid. I think it's not great. Um, there's always that chance of, you know, having your kid just all of a sudden stop liking it because you're doing it 12 months a year. These kids need breaks. They need breaks from coaches. They need breaks from their teammates. They need breaks from the everyday grind of being a baseball player or a soccer player. When we get done with baseball season, as a parent, I make our son take a good month off, just like get away from it all. Like, don't pick up a glove, don't pick up a bat. Let's just pick up a basketball. Let's shoot hoops. Let's do something other. And I'll tell you, when it comes time to start picking up that baseball bat and that glove again, he loves it. It's like, okay, I missed it. Let's get back into this, get going. So, I think having your kid play multiple sports is huge. And I think some people always say, well, my kid's not very good at another sport. Well, that might be true, but there's a spot for your son to play another sport somewhere. If he's not a good basketball player, there's basketball leagues that have recreational that you can
Yeah.
just get out, run around, shoot a basketball. So there's options for everybody.
And it's a matter of learning how. Sometimes it's just learning how to be an athlete, and if
Absolutely.
you may be a good athlete at one particular sport, and maybe you're not as good, like you said, at another, but it
Yeah,
helps your overall athleticism, whether you're as good at that
100%.
sport as another. And I think those are
Absolutely.
valid points. And everybody has to, as a parent, as a player, as a kid, whatever the case may be, however you have to make those decisions early on in that respect.
Mhm.
Because I've seen where kids just are done with
Yeah.
baseball or done
Get
with
burnt out.
basketball.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm done. I don't want
Mhm.
to play anymore. I'm not going to play anymore. And bye. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's bad, but it's not a matter that they quit because it was somebody said, "Hey, you're just not good enough to go to the next level." It was, I quit because I just am tired of this. And I think
Yep.
there's some of that I think is kind of there's something about that I just don't like. I'd rather, hey, if you're
Yeah.
finished, you've reached your place, you've reached your pinnacle, good for you. You've had
Yeah.
success.
Yep. Yeah, it's a hard thing, and as a parent, it's hard to. They don't give you a guidebook when you start having kids and say this is how you do things. So I obviously think that each parent has to do what's best for their kids, and they know their kids the best, and they have to do what they think is best for their kids. But you also have to guide them, and they're at the age where they need guidance and being able to help them get where they need to. And like I said, some people play a sport for a really long time and then just be like, okay, well, I'm not feeling it anymore. I'm going to find something else. Perfect. You tell me what you want to do, and we'll be 100% backing of you.
As you went through the blog, now this is a subject we work with a lot of clubs, and I love the clubs as far
Mhm.
as that's going. But I want there to be open and honest conversations, and
Yeah.
that's what Youth Baseball Midwest is about here. You kind of have some things to add, you have some
I knew you were going to
questions,
get
and
to this.
that's okay. If you want to, it's not. And here's the thing: people have to understand. I believe there's always a place for somebody to play.
Absolutely.
Club baseball, these things. I would just like to hear, share with people your take on what you've seen.
Yeah, and so I want to make sure that people understand that, and I don't want I don't want club owners coming up to me and ready to punch me in the face if they see me somewhere
And
because of what I'm going to
right.
say. I am going to say right now, I do not blame any club owner for what they do or what they're doing. I think as any businessman would do, you try to maximize your profits as much as you can. I'm going to say right now that I blame a lot of this on the parents. I blame a lot of what's going on with some of the parents. You know, Parents sometimes are try to relive their glory days through their kids. And
Agreed.
sometimes I think parents should step back and see what's best for their kids. My son has played at a very high level baseball for the last couple of years. We've done an independent team and we've done a very large club team. Now, each one of them has their positives and each one of them has their negatives. And I can't say right here what is the best.
Right.
I'm not an authority and say what's the best.
Right.
What I think parents need to do is step back and say, okay, my $2,500 that I'm paying for my son to just wear that name on the jersey, is it really worth it? Is it worth me spending that amount of money for my son or daughter to go play on this club team and not be successful and not have fun and then turn to them not liking the sport? I
Right.
think I think people need to just be realistic of what their son or daughter is going to do. And like I said, I think, and it's a shame because I really think the recreational leagues in the area have fallen. Like they're hanging on by a thread. I know
Hmm.
this for a fact. Growing up, my parents were highly involved in the St. Charles Junior Baseball and Softball Association. Highly involved. My mom was the scheduler. My dad was the head of the umpires. We were at the ballpark every night. I
Hmm.
go out to a ballpark in St. Charles and like there's fields open. Like there were fields open when we were kids.
Right.
So I think what it's taken is people are taking their kids and putting them in these clubs. Now, to each your own, you do whatever you want with your money, but I think it's watered down the club baseball experience a little bit. I think, there's so many kids out there and you know, a lot of these clubs, if I came up with 10, 11 kids right now and I called them and say, "Hey, I got a I got a team, could we come to your organization?" I would bet money that they would say, "Absolutely. Here's the fees, here's what it costs." And probably would not even really blink an eye and say, well, are you a recreational team? Are you a high level team? Are you a double A team? I don't know. I don't think they will. But like I said, I don't blame those guys at all. They're just trying to maximize their profits. They're trying to support their family and trying to support their business.
And you're making a fair point, and you're not saying all of them do this. That's not the point. So everybody it's
Hmm.
just a
Yeah.
conversation. We're looking at an overall scope of things. Are there clubs that do things the right way? And yeah, I'm sure there are. Are there clubs that
Yeah,
probably
for sure.
grab money? I'm sure there are. But it's
Hmm.
it's a matter of, I think Mike's point. I like your point. I think it is up to the parent, and it should always be to the parent, not
Absolutely.
to the club, not to this that. And yeah, I think there are some recreational teams that are probably playing on a weekend that, you know, that doesn't mean as a recreational team you couldn't jump in a tournament, right?
Right, right, for sure.
But are you getting the experience where you're at with the kids and the things like
Yeah.
that? But I also, to your point, Mike, I think there's a little bit of level of blame on some of these organizations, these local athletic associations that didn't fight more for these kids and these opportunities and didn't push back a little bit. As we walk through some of these things, I think that's a good question to ask.
Yeah, and I agree. I agree with you. I think that I think some of those organizations have done a little bit better job of trying to do a better job with that. Back when I was a kid, um, you could only have you could bring two kids with you. You had two claims, so like it was two kids, and then you literally drew a name from a box,
Right.
um, and that was your roster. Right now, those organizations have changed where you can bring a whole team with you, and I think that's a big part of it. That you can bring a whole team with you, and I think it helps. But you're right. I think I agree. Some of these recreational leagues need to do a little bit better job of you know making sure that people know that their leagues are available, making their leagues playable, and making them do what they can for you.
How about if things are changing, and maybe just an answer to certain things is, how are things changing in the sense of, can some of these associations talk to some of these tournament groups? where's the innovative thinking as a whole? And I think these are
Yeah.
the questions that maybe somebody could start posing. And so where you could bring in some of the recreational stuff and bring those things to bear a little bit
Yeah.
and bring about something that's a little bit better on that. I think everything is evolved.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going backwards, right?
No. No,
So
I agree, and I agree with you 100% on that, Brian. I know teams that are recreational teams that would love to play tournaments, but right now there isn't really a spot for them to go where they don't go and just get their brains beat in on a
right.
weekend, which isn't any good for the kids and isn't any good for anybody. You know, so yeah, I definitely think that's something that these leagues should be looking into as well, to reach out to these guys.
Yeah. And so, as we finish up here today, I mean, I think these are all good points. And whether you agree or disagree, it's a matter of getting into the conversation because you're always going to have people on both sides that go, well, I think this and
Yep,
I think that's great. That's great. I don't have a problem with those things.
absolutely.
What we're trying to foster here, and that's why I really liked Mike's blog, is I think it pointed out some things that we can discuss moving forward. Correct?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I don't think that there's not a right answer to this question at all. Like you said, it was something that it's been something that's kind of bothered me for the last little bit, and it's something that I just wrote down, and you put it on there, and I appreciate it, and like I said, I don't blame the club owners at all. They're doing what they do. They have a business. They have to make sure they can turn their lights on and they can build these huge facilities, which are great for even individual teams and local teams because they allow them to use it. So
Right.
I in
See,
all,
there's a
I
lot of
think
positives to that as well, right? Training
for
and
sure that's
stuff.
what I'm saying. Right. I think as much as that has become a business, I still think that how big the business has gotten has also allowed other kids to become better at their sports and
Yeah.
become something that they probably wouldn't have been without this. I think you can get some of the best instruction from these clubs, and they allow their instructors to do outside lessons, which I think is great. I think it allows kids to become better athletes, and the type of play that you see in these sports nowadays with these kids is amazing. Like some of the
Yeah.
baseball games that I helped coach in 11U baseball, like some of the things these kids do, you're just like, I mean, I wasn't doing that until I was in high school. It's incredible,
Right.
and as much as
Yeah.
it's changed, as much as it changed money wise, I think the talent has gotten so much better, and the type of play has gotten just astronomically better over the last few years. It's crazy.
Absolutely. Well, hey guys, if you want to read the blog, again, go to youthbaseballmidwest.com. Go to our blogs. It's on our main page there, YBM Perspective. The blog is right there. It's our featured blog for the month. Mike, appreciate you being with us, man. I really do.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I always enjoy sitting and talking baseball, talking shop.
And Mike's got some other stuff cooking up, so we'll get him back on here in the future. He's going to keep contributing, so we appreciate that.
Got something cooking right now that I think you and Justin talked about the last show you had, but got a pretty good perspective on that. So I'm gonna get you something good.
There you go. There you go. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it. If you're enjoying the show, if you're enjoying it, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to get it's the dinger, right? We got to get the dinger. Hit the dinger for the notifications. We appreciate you doing that. Follow us on Facebook at Youth Baseball Midwest. And all you pitchers, keep throwing strikes. You hitters, hit them where they ain't. Everybody have a great day in the Lord, and we'll see you next time.